But when you take 40 and there's nothing on it.
Everyone's mad at Janelle for living her life. But no one's asking why they're so angry.
An offer that was accepted, so.
If it all closes and everything's good, which I don't see why anything would happen, but yeah, no. We're going to be.
People really need to lay off Janelle and the whole farm situation. Maybe it's just a vegetable stand. Maybe it's an event space. Maybe it's just a patch of land where she wants to live in peace. Either way, what's the problem?
But when you take 40 and there's nothing on it, it's a pretty big space.
Are you going to make mud pies?
She's planning to build a house there, and it wouldn't be surprising if Maddie eventually did the same. The land was affordable, and it doesn't seem like the goal is to run a large-scale farm with crops and livestock. Even if the farm idea doesn't pan out, she still ends up with a home. Plenty of people own land simply to live on it. They're not running commercial farms. Some have dozens of acres and use it for nothing more than peace and quiet. Honestly, it's a far more reasonable choice than other life decisions she's made in the past. It seems like she's finally building a life that makes her happy. She's surrounded by family and grandchildren. She has the land she's wanted, and she appears to be seeking a more grounded, nature-connected life. That alone is worth respecting.
165.
What? Well, Janelle, that's a lot better than the 2 acres you would have got on kind of.
Developing something like a flower farm takes time. You can't plan an entire operation overnight. There's infrastructure to build, and housing comes first. Once that's in place, the rest can follow. Expecting fully developed farmland before the foundation is even poured isn't realistic.
I don't know what I'm doing here. I know.
That said, it's fair to point out that the idea wasn't especially well thought out. Janelle was never exactly a budding farmer, and the early hype around the project set expectations she likely wasn't prepared to meet.
And so far, it's not so promising.
Scrutiny is valid when public attention and profit are involved. At the same time, this situation reflects a broader pattern. The family, historically, has made impulsive decisions without strong long-term planning, often relying on outside income to stay afloat.
A couple animals, maybe a greenhouse. Pretty basic.
Unfortunately, those habits are being passed down. In the end, people are entitled to form opinions about all of it. The choices, the outcomes, and the direction things are headed. Just remember, building a meaningful life on your own terms, even if imperfectly done, is still a step forward. She wasn't a wife. She was a mistress. And yes, we're talking about Robin. Robin didn't enter the family as a wife. She entered as a mistress. The family was already long established when she arrived, years into its formation.
I got a wife in labor. I'm not going to sit here kissing my girlfriend.
She came in with romantic behavior well before marriage. Kissing, emotional entanglement, and full-blown betrayal. She wasn't just a newcomer. She was a disruption.
So what we've done is we've contacted this company.
Her arrival brought secrecy, manipulation, and financial burden. Debts that weren't hers to place on others were suddenly being paid off by the family. She contributed nothing tangible, yet expected full support, emotionally, financially, domestically.
But they never talked about with everybody
this moment.
No.
It was a calculated move, and she played it well. The relationship between her and Cody didn't resemble courtship. It was an affair in both spirit and execution, built on deception. Not just behind closed doors, but publicly as well. A foundation like that doesn't just crack, it crumbles. At the time, Cody already had 3 wives and a fully formed family, with children well into their teens. The spiritual requirement had already been met. The addition of another wife felt less like religious calling and more like a personal crisis.
Polygamy doesn't work if you're going to actually fall in love.
And you fell in love.
I fell in love hard.
He would later admit the marriage wasn't spiritually driven. It was about attraction, plain and simple. Christine's reaction wasn't jealousy born of insecurity. It was intuition. She recognized something was off. Her family was changing, and she could feel the shift before anyone could articulate it. Watching her struggle with that emotional unraveling was painful. Robin's expectations seemed naive at best. She likely imagined being welcomed with open arms, her children adored, her presence embraced. Cody's initial devotion may have reinforced that fantasy, but marriage didn't come with constant attention. 1 day out of 4 wasn't enough, especially when that day had to be shared with the needs of other wives, and more importantly, with children who had long established bonds with their father.
Apologize. And I need to communicate some more because
That's what you said. You've said that to me multiple times. They need to apologize.
She seemed unprepared for the reality that Cody was connected to his older children. His involvement in their lives, especially with those he shared interests with, like wrestling, wasn't something she could control, and it made her feel threatened. Despite her frequent appeals to modesty and morality, Robin's own history contradicts the image she tried to present. She had a child before marriage in her first relationship, then entered this family through a relationship with a man who was already married, emotionally involved, physically close, and entirely inappropriate.
As I was a single mom working.
At one point, she shared intimacy with him while his wife was in labor. That alone says everything about where her priorities, and his, truly were. There was nothing pure about it, only entitlement, ambition, and a trail of consequences left for others to carry. Everyone blames Christine for leaving, but what if the only person fighting for the family was Janelle?
It has been a long time since the 5 of us got together.
Prior to the pandemic, Janelle convened a meeting to address an issue that others had been avoiding, why they joined the principal in the first place, and whether those goals still mattered. From her perspective, it was obviously didn't. The shared vision that once held them together was slipping, and she wasn't about to sit back and pretend otherwise.
That we've sort of become lackluster about our relationship. We need to fix things now.
She approached each wife individually, trying to open lines of communication, suggesting ways to reconnect, family gatherings, meaningful conversations, that sort of thing. She wasn't being naive. She could see what was coming. The kids were growing up, leaving home, and once the parenting duties faded, what would be left of the family structure? Not much from the look of it.
talk about what's going on. I haven't functioned in a marriage-like relationship.
By that time, the unraveling was already well underway. Mary and Cody had no relationship left. Christine was deeply unhappy. Robin was playing a different game altogether.
Our ratio was 3.5 to 1. Because your mom...
3.5 kids is by yourself is a lot.
Right around then, Robin brought up the idea of having another baby. It wasn't really about wanting a child, it was about making a point. She was the only wife still physically able to expand the family, subtly positioning herself as the only viable option for Cody to keep the legacy going. The timing was convenient.
We have a pandemic breakout of COVID-19 in the United States.
Then COVID hit, and the differences between the households couldn't have been more obvious. Robin enforced strict isolation, no wiggle room, no negotiations. Christine went the opposite direction, doing her own thing entirely, and Cody's absence only made that easier. Janelle, as usual, tried to be the bridge. She actively searched for a solution, but underneath it all, she recognized the truth. The family was collapsing.
I think it's been almost a year since we talked.
It's telling that it took months to even hold that crucial meeting. Months of silence, avoidance, and clear disinterest in functioning as a unit. The message was loud and clear. Janelle also stood alone in voicing concern over Mary's legal divorce. She pointed out that it could alter the family's internal dynamics, something everyone else seemed determined to ignore. They assumed Mary would act in the family's best interest, given her legal status. Janelle, however, wasn't confident that Robin would do the same if the roles were reversed. And that skepticism turned out to be justified.
So I'm still very much about trying to make this a unit of the 5 adults.
Because Janelle was the only wife who actually believed in plural marriage. She didn't resent it the way Mary and Christine did, and Robin appeared more interested in being the favored wife than in building true plural unity. She enjoyed the structure and the support it gave her, but not necessarily the principle behind it. Janelle wasn't born into the lifestyle. She chose it. She committed to it. She worked at her relationships with the other wives, even when it was uncomfortable. For years, that effort seemed to pay off, but the move to Flagstaff marked a turning point, where the structure no longer served her, and the relationships stopped being reciprocal.
She genuinely valued the shared family life, the interconnectedness between the kids, the support among the original wives. But once the children grew up and the distractions faded, the foundation showed its cracks. Without a strong adult bond holding them together, the problems became impossible to ignore. Janelle likely didn't want radical change, but she also wasn't blind. She understood that they were drifting apart, and she tried, before anyone else, to stop it. Not out of denial, but out of a hope that maybe, just maybe, something could still be salvaged. She made the effort. She opened the door. But in the end, she was the only one still trying.
He watched his son cry and blame someone else for it. Season 16, Episode 9 delivers a heartbreaking moment that highlights the core issue behind Cody's fractured relationships with his children.
Gabe and I got
I'm sorry, it's been 8 months since I've been able to hang out with my dad.
During a tense conversation at the property, his son Gabe opens up with raw vulnerability, expressing a deep desire to reconnect and spend time with his father. He communicates clearly, grounds himself with breathing, and articulates his needs in an emotionally mature and composed way. In stark contrast, Cody deflects entirely.
It's your mother made choices and Christine made choices. Yes, and your mother is the Teflon queen.
Rather than acknowledge Gabe's pain or take responsibility, he shifts blame onto Gabe's mother, refusing to engage with the real issue at hand. His inability to respond with empathy or even basic emotional awareness underscores a pattern of avoidance and blame shifting. The juxtaposition between Gabe's emotional intelligence and Cody's dismissiveness is striking.
I think Gabriel is just trying so hard to get his dad to have a relationship with him again.
It becomes evident that the strength and clarity Gabe shows didn't come from his father, but from the environment his mother, Janelle, provided. The scene makes it painfully clear. The emotional disconnect isn't just unfortunate, it's the consequence of consistent neglect, arrogance, and a refusal to grow.
All the blame has come to me, hasn't it?
It has.
Every bit of it.
This moment stands as a defining example of why the family's bonds have unraveled and why many of the children have chosen distance over dysfunction. They didn't divide Coyote Pass because it was fair, they did it for the cameras. Janelle and Cody's fight happened back in December 2021.
I have an appointment to meet with Cody. I have not seen him.
Then came the so-called heart-to-heart between Mary, Cody, and Robin at the picnic table in fall of 2022. And yet somehow it took until March of 2025 for Cody and Robin to finally retitle Coyote Pass in a way that was actually fair.
Guys, where I would like to be.
You had made it absolutely clear to me.
That kind of delay is nothing short of ridiculous. It's hard to imagine they didn't resist the entire process. For it to drag on that long, they must have fought tooth and nail to hold on. It's frustrating, even infuriating. Yes, it's good that Mary and Janelle ended up with something, especially considering they paid into the land. But the fact that it took years to get there feels fundamentally wrong. There's a strong sense that this wasn't just about logistics. The timing of the title change seems almost too deliberate, especially considering the paperwork was prepared as early as September 2024, but no one signed for months. It's hard not to see that as calculated. Everything points to a delay designed to preserve tension. Coyote Pass was the last real connection between Cody and his original wives, and it seems like that tie wasn't going to be cut without a struggle.
You made fun of me to the boys. See, if you ever had my back.
It was less about property and more about power. Cody appeared to hang on to it for as long as he could, another example of control taking precedence over resolution.
You were like, does anybody know what was spent on this and this and this and
Yes,
this?
right.
And then there's the financial side. Managing a $12,000 a month mortgage and purchasing a $100,000 luxury vehicle raises plenty of questions. The numbers just don't add up, and it's difficult to believe that kind of spending doesn't warrant scrutiny.
It's about reconfiguring the property, and by doing that, might get our family focused back on the dream.
Ultimately, the date on the paperwork, September 2024, lines up almost too perfectly with the start of a new season. If the land had been divided equitably any earlier, much of the drama would have evaporated. It seems clear that the Coyote Pass saga was stretched out to keep tensions high and interest alive. He demanded custody of one daughter.
What about Truly? I think Truly's gonna be fine.
While ignoring the other. When Christine announced she was leaving, suddenly Cody was all about getting 50-50 custody of Truly. Not because he genuinely wanted to co-parent, but because it looked good on paper and might help him dodge child support. He wasn't trying to be a present father, he was trying to protect his wallet. Meanwhile, around Christmas, he didn't speak to Savannah for days. No check-in, no visit, nothing. And then he turns around and blames Janelle for the lack of time spent with their daughter, claiming that if they hadn't separated, he could have split his time 2 days with Robin and 2 days with Janelle. As if his presence is a prize and his daughter's availability doesn't matter unless it's convenient for him. Here's the reality. Savannah was there, 100% available, and he chose not to show up. No excuse. But when Christine was moving to Utah, he made a scene over Truly, not out of concern, but because he needed control. He creates conflict, not connection. It's what he does.
I don't consider myself married. I consider myself definitely.
Then, after all the drama, he shows up to Janelle's place acting cheerful, expecting a warm welcome, as if he hadn't stormed out and slammed the door the last time they spoke. But Janelle wasn't fooled. She made it clear she wanted to stay separated, and she didn't buy into the empty charm or fake promises.
And no communication over Christmas or anything like that?
No gifts, no nothing.
What's painfully obvious is that Cody treats his kids based on how he feels about their mothers. If he's upset with the mom, the child becomes invisible. His love is conditional, transactional, and cruel. His behavior towards Savannah proves it. She didn't wrong him. She didn't pick sides. But because he's punishing Janelle, Savannah gets pushed aside. It's astonishing how blatantly he neglects his children and still spins the narrative to make himself the victim. He can't comprehend that his own actions are the cause of the breakdowns. Instead, he blames everyone else for not tolerating the lopsided arrangement where Robin gets everything and the others are left with excuses.
All he needs to do is, God, see his kids.
And that blank expression when Janelle calls him out for not seeing his daughter, that wasn't shock. That was indifference. He didn't forget. He just didn't care. He doesn't parent, he performs. And only when it suits him.
They claimed it was about COVID safety. Turns out it was about control.
Can you guys come in the living room so I can talk to you guys?
In season 16, episode 8, Robin tells her kids that Janelle and Christine don't want to spend Thanksgiving with them. She frames it as, Dad gave them a list of rules to follow so we could see each other, making it sound like the others just refused to cooperate.
What's not doable? I haven't even looked over it.
But there's a glaring inconsistency. When the adults met at Mary's house and Cody and Robin brought that infamous list, Robin claims she had already been following those rules for 8 months. If that's true, why didn't she say something like, here's what your dad and I have been doing for months to stay safe, and we're asking everyone to do the same? Instead, it's framed as if these were long-standing practices that everyone else just refused to adopt, which raises serious questions about the timeline.
Okay, I really don't have a problem with following this list of requirements.
Realistically, it's hard to believe Robin and Cody had been wiping down mail, avoiding all stores, and quarantining to that extreme for 8 continuous months. At most, they likely stayed home more than usual and practiced basic precautions like frequent hand washing. All signs point to these rules being introduced shortly before the holiday, likely a precondition Robin set in hopes of getting the family together on her terms. From the way her kids responded, it's doubtful they had been living under those rules for months either. If they had, their reaction would have been more along the lines of, we've done our part, why won't they? Instead, it sounded like they had just been told what to expect and were confused and hurt when others declined. The narrative Robin presented appeared crafted to shift blame and create a sense of rejection.
I'm sad that you're not going to be here for Thanksgiving, but
She made it seem like Christine and Janelle simply didn't care enough to participate when in reality, they had children and grandchildren in other states they wanted to visit. Robin even acknowledges this, saying the original 3 wives have older children who've moved away, yet she still implies that in polygamy, it should be different, that sacrificing time with adult children is expected. Meanwhile, she gets to have all her kids at home for every holiday without question. This entire scene comes across as emotional manipulation. Rather than helping her children understand the complexities, distance, life circumstances, or even just the reality of sharing time among many family members, Robin leans into a victim narrative. Dayton's comment, "They can't follow the rules, or they won't," was met with silence. There was no effort to explain the real-world reasons why the others couldn't be there, like work, school, or logistics.
Even setting COVID aside, it's inevitable in a large, spread-out family that not everyone will gather in the same place every year. That should have been acknowledged. Instead, Robin chose to portray it as a matter of principle, something others were failing at. The praise Mary received from Dayton for staying also rings hollow. Given the circumstances, she likely didn't have much of a choice. With her adult child living out of state and no indication they were invited for Thanksgiving, her options were limited. Traveling would have meant isolation requirements afterward. Staying was less about loyalty and more about practicality. Janelle and Christine were painted as disloyal or selfish for choosing to visit their other children. But this ignores the fact that it was Cody who set firm, exclusionary terms. He made it clear that some family members weren't welcome without apology or submission to strict rules. The so-called concern for safety was selectively applied. In the end, the list of rules was more about control than safety, shaped largely by Robin's anxieties. By then, most people had adjusted their behaviors and found safe ways to gather. But Robin clung to extremes and convinced Cody to do the same, fracturing the larger family dynamic in the process. And despite repeatedly claiming they were the ones voted off the island, Robin and her children were the ones who closed the door. After conflicts and harsh messages, her kids expressed no desire to reconnect with the rest of the family, yet Robin continued to portray them as the rejected ones. It wasn't about COVID. It was about control, manipulation, and rewriting the narrative to suit her role as the perennial victim.